Good morning, guys. Sire, the Mancunian. Welcome to a Gunner Talk. I didn't think I'd be doing another one of these particularly soon, just because we've got that lull now. When the build up towards the Europa League final, I thought it'd be pretty quiet. I just want to say a massive thank you because I've had so many nice messages from a lot of you. That take this, I think, a bit more seriously than I do. I just do it, just to share my thoughts with you guys and to give you guys, something to sort of feed off and on your own thoughts and then fire back at me and just give you a different point of view or, one that, runs parallel with your own. It's just that, I live in Manchester. I work up and down the country a lot and I talk to a lot of football people, but not necessarily Arsenal fans. And that was it for me. It's the only social media I use really is Twitter, and it's so hard to get your thoughts and feelings down in within the character limit that I just prefer to do this as an idea and a better way of getting my feelings across. But some of the feedback I've had from some of you, honestly, it got a little bit of wind in my eyes. Really touching, guys, and please help me get this out to more people where it's not about ranting and raving and getting it for clicks or monetary value. I couldn't care about those things. It's just about purely talking Arsenal with as many Arsenal fans as possible. And I push around a few ideas, and some of you, you don't want to be shouted out, which is fair enough. I get that. It's a bit like me, really. I don't want any notoriety really for being a fan. I just would like to, help other fans feel more settled in their thoughts or opinions. But it's been absolutely lovely, and I love some of the questions that some of you send to me because it gives me a chance to think of maybe things that I wouldn't have thought about, or like say aligns with my thoughts, and I think it's not just me that pushes for this or sees which way the club needs to go, or that so on and so on. So I thought I'd go through some of the questions. I've been off work ill with a chest infection for a few days, and I've been rattling around getting cabin fever, so it's given me some time to sort of look into a few things. So some of the main things I was asked about was this season, success or not, stats from this season, what my thoughts were on some of them, and then looking into the transfer window, what could happen, what won't happen, what might happen. So I'm just going to try and blast through a load of this. It might get a bit boring, but it gives us a bit of an evaluation of everything that's gone on. So I'm going to crack on with it. Just looking. Somebody asked me about Emery and said, what do you think? Has he been a success or not? How can you rate his season on a whole? It's a tricky one for me because I think there's so many outside factors that have made his job a lot harder than it should have been. A manager should really just be purely being rated on what they're doing on the pitch. But I think you've got to take into consideration so many more things when you're rating this guy of how well he's done, which is that you just look at the transfer situation at the moment. We've got so many players who, are going, so many that have to go, and then you're looking at sort of players of age that are going to have to go, limited funds to then replace, the youth setup. There's so many factors that this guy's having to deal with, and so many restraints he's having to work under, and I give him massive credit for that. For me, purely just on a pitch basis, just looking at it manager for manager going off, Arsene in his last year, you guys know my feelings. I love the club and I loved Arsene. I still do love him, but he was doing us a big disservice towards the end, I feel. He kept certain players happy that, for the benefit of the club, should have gone a while ago. Contracts, the mess that we're in with some of these contracts is a huge reason why we've sort of been on a downhill spiral, and it's another reason why I give Emery a lot of credit for the job he's done. And if I'm just looking on a purely pitch basis, we wanted change, and we've got change in a big way. Some of you might say, well, we're letting in a similar amount of goals, and and the stat side of it, but what we've actually now got is a manager who, if you look at this season, excuse me, there might be quite a lot of that in this. If you take away sort of the disappointment of how it culminated at the end and look at it how just as a season it evolved, there was a lot of reasons to be happy about it. We started off with 2 losses, but to 2 of the toughest teams we were going to play in the league this year. City, we got walloped. That was to be expected, to be honest. I didn't expect a lot from the first sort of 6 weeks of the season. So, integrating in new players, new ideas from the manager. I always knew that was going to be tough. And then the Chelsea one was a bit of kick in the teeth because I didn't feel like we got the result we deserved out of that game. But then from there on in, we went on an absolutely great run. And you can say a lot of the games were lucky, they were fluke. That's what it takes to win the league. You don't. It's tricky to win it playing the best football in the world every week. Even the top teams have blips. And we had some blips, but we kept getting results out. 22 games unbeaten across all competitions, whatever it was. We were still pulling results out of the fire, and that's something I didn't feel would have happened the season or the season before that under Wenger, because he was too much of a nicey nice, softly approach, which wasn't helping the club at all move forward. And when I look at the fact that we've finished fifth. At the start of the season, I hoped we could sneak in the top four, but I thought realistic was 4th to 6th. I didn't think we'd struggle. I didn't think we'd be in competition to win the league, but I thought 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. I knew we'd be in that area, and it'd be a bit of a bum fight of just who stepped up. And sadly for us, that wasn't us. But I do think we have stepped up. It just wasn't the required level needed to snag that top four and back in the Champions League without now the pressure going on to the Europa League final. But looking at the season, we finished with right up till the end. We were involved in something which we weren't the year before. We were in a fight for that top four. Some of you will say, well, we had it in our hands. To a degree we did, but we were never a big favourite for top four, and that's something you've got to take into consideration when you're evaluating the season as a whole. But one point off top four, and it comes back to the old adage of Spurs. This wonderful Spurs side that laying waste to landmarks and rules and laws and and all this, and they're so wonderful and they're so expansive and the way they do things. We're a team that are in, have been in the shit, and we're in complete transition, and we finished 1 point below them. North London for me certainly hasn't changed colour and isn't about to. Even if they won the Champions League, there's still a hell of a long way behind us. It might be one thing they have over us, but it's the only thing they have over us. And it doesn't negate the fact that on every other front they're way behind us, in terms of history and all the rest of it. So it's not a reason for me to lose sleep, although it would keep me up a while. It's not something I'm going to lose the plot over and then evaluate our season based on Spurs' season, because it's got no relevance to our own. You've got to take care of the issues in your own house before you start throwing stones at your neighbours. And that's for me how I see it. We made it to the semi-final of the Europa League last year. We were unlucky to go out, but we went out, and that's the facts of it. That's the nuts and bolts of it. Whereas this year we're in a final. Now maybe we might lose the final, but it's still progression. I think a lot of you are taking what the events of the last couple of weeks very, very poorly and negatively, rather than looking at, has there been improvement? There definitely has. Another big thing for me is the games against the big teams. That's been massively improved. I felt last year any time we played any of the top four teams we were going to get a walloping, and I had no real faith in the side at all, and the character of them to come through it with a result, whether that was a draw or taking all 3 points. I didn't have any faith in it, whereas I fancied us a lot this year, and I'm sure a lot of you have got to feel that same way. Maybe you take City out of it, but even against them I felt like we'd battle, and more teams more on our level, Spurs, Chelsea, United, I felt like we were the stronger side, and we felt like we should take all 3 points, and that we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't. And I even felt like that based on my own personal feelings towards this squad not being good enough, and that is all down to Unai for me. Yes, you can say our results against lower teams is disappointed, but that's something that's a lot easier to fix, in my opinion, than competing against the big boys. So I think it's been a successful season for Unai without it being, mind-blowingly brilliant. I think it's been a success and a good building point where it's been a massive transitional season. I pointed out to some of you guys, just look at the players that came in, over the last few windows, Oba, Laka, Leno, Torreira, Socrates, Guendouzi. Now, there's 6 players who are probably 6 of our 8 best players, and they've all only been here for a year and a half max, which is that shows you the sort of turnover that we need in this squad for me to keep moving forward. And I do think Unai is the right man to do it. I think he is going to wield the axe, and I've got reasons to believe that that's going to happen, because I don't think some things can take. I want to give him time, and I'm going to give him time, but it's also in my head there's a lot of things that have to happen quickly and can't take a long time, because then we're going to just end up in the same cycle again. Whereas for me, I think there needs to be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction and a big wholesale change quickly, and then we build from that, rather than half-arsing it a little bit and then building a little bit and half-arsing a little bit and building a little bit, and it's going to take too long, and then we're going to walk into problems of then there's going to be other players that need excuse me, then there's going to be other players that need replacing, which aren't of a priority at the moment. So I'll look into that a bit further down the line, but just looking into this season, and people saying we need wingers, people still saying it now. That's our biggest issue, is we've got no width, no creativity out wide. It's not our biggest problem, guys. It might be your biggest want, to see exciting football and really expansive, creative football. But it's when you come down to it, like I say, the nuts and bolts of everything, it's not our biggest issue. Goals this year, 473 against 51. And that 73 goals is only behind City and Liverpool. So when you consider we're not in direct competition with them currently, in our transition, we are coming out top of everybody else when it comes to goals scored. And it is heavily reliant on our front two, which I'm not happy about, but it's not our biggest issue. Our biggest issue is that 51 against. That puts us right down there with some of the worst defensive sides in the league. And it ain't good enough. When I look at those 73 goals and eight clean sheets, awful. That's really awful, and I feel really sorry for Leno, because he deserved a lot more than that from me. The way he's played this year. But if I get onto the goals, and we're looking at, we had 339 total shots, which half of them were on target, 170, which culminated in those 73 goals. So we're sort of running at a 50% conversion on all of those stats running down. But then I looked at the 73 goals, 62 of them came inside the box. From outside the box, 3 of them were free kicks. So you look in there, 8 goals from open play outside the box this season. That is appalling. That is absolutely appalling. And comes down to one of my biggest issues with the squad, which is what I'll get onto further down the line. Looking at our pass stats, 84% pass completion, which is strong, but then I looked into that, only 33% of those were forward passes, which buys into my mindset of this, this crab football, this sideways back, back across the back line, building out again. It's not happening quick enough, we're not transitioning fast enough, and it's a big problem of why, like I say, the creativity coming from outside the strikers isn't very good. Like I say, 8 clean sheets, that's way too low for a team like us, and impressive really that we've finished 5th when you consider we've leaked 51 goals and we've only managed 8 clean sheets. That's bottom half of the table stats, guys. Another one that I noticed with the goals, only 5 headed goals. That's not great. That should be double that number for me. And only 5 penalties, which 4 of we scored. We're nearly we're conceding more or as many penalties as we're scoring, which isn't a great stat either. And these all worry me a little bit. If you're looking behind the strikers, obviously we know they've been shit hot in front of goal. Pretty electric. But you look after that, Mickey 6, Ozil 5, Xhaka 4, Rambo 4. Now this is where I get round to, this is our problem. This is the nucleus of our side. And like I say to you guys, what a lot of you don't notice is our biggest problem is in the centre of the park. It's the most important part of the pitch for me. You have all the outside positions, which are strikers, wing backs, goalkeeper, and then you have internal positions, which are the heart of the team, the spine. And I always used to say it when you looked at that good, most recent, like the Chelsea side, they had Cech in net. They had Terry at centre-back, they had Essien in the middle of the park, they had Drogba up top, and I used to look at that spine, like we used to have, if Seaman, Adams, Vieira, Thierry, that real strong, physical, athletic, dynamic core right through the middle of your team. And we do not have that. We don't even have close to it. And for me, it's our massive problem. All our most what people would call our most creative midfielders there, aren't coming up with 20 goals between them, and they're taking, the best part of 800 grand a week between all of them. It's not good, guys. It doesn't make for good reading. And then I looked into the assists. Laka on 8 assists is our top guy. Rambo Iwobi 6 each. And then it came down to Bellerin and Kolasinac 5 each. Where are Meza and Mickey in that? It's they're 2 top earners. Aren't hitting the top in assists, goals. Obviously not going to happen in goals, but they're not on that next tier either. It's not. I would expect 10 of one or the other out of both of them. Or 15 in total goals and assists. It's as a minimum from both. As our 2 highest earners, and it's really not good. And also on the other side, as well as they're not really helping the attack, they're doing nothing to help the defence either, and that's why for me I give our defence a little bit of leeway, because although they're not great, and I have issues as a unit with this offside trap that they don't step out as a unit, or 3-4 of them do and one steps back 2 foot. Aside those things, they're not getting a ton of support. And I dread to think if we hadn't brought Torreira in, I think we'd have been 7th and 20 points off top 4 and absolutely nothing to play for most of the season. And this is where it lies for me, is the issue. It's wing backs are creating, our centre forwards are creating for themselves. Our issue is coming from wings and the centre of the park. But we are still managing a big number. It's just that we've got to take the heat off these strikers a little bit. So I looked into, and you guys know from my previous videos, that centre midfield trio of, Meza, Torreira and Xhaka, and I keep telling you guys, there's no athleticism in it, and things that might change, might not change. Well, one thing that won't change in that midfield is Torreira, so he is set at the base of our midfield for next year. Then, for me, like I keep saying, if Meza is staying, Xhaka is the fall guy. He's the guy who has to go, because his position for me is the most important, and maybe that's based on what I've watched over the last few years. Going back in history, a Vieira, Petit had it, and then you look at more modern sides in football, and I keep referencing to Yaya Toure, but we had it in Diaby. I don't want to talk about him too much because it upsets me that we never got the full potential of that kid, because he could have ran our midfield for years and he was exactly what we needed. But let's get off that. But that is what we need, that type of player that can march up and down the pitch and help. And I was thinking about it last night, and I thought, the excitement of just hearing that, Torreira plays the ball to somebody, and then this player, and you're hearing, the commentary of just beating a couple of men, a strong, powerful run through the middle of the pitch, and then you can hear of that noise of players making runs out wide, a player down the middle making a run, and you can just hear that sort of, he's beat 2 man, and he's slotted it inside the back 4, and it's Laka walking onto it, and you just hear goal, and we just don't have that at the moment. It sucks the life out of me. And like I say, it's most important for me. I do think we need a strong centre-back, but we need a dynamic midfielder. And I believe Ainsley can step up to be that, but not first team. I don't want that much pressure on him straight away. So I do think he'd be that as a backup, but we need a first teamer. And for me to replace Xhaka, I don't want to hear any of this. Well, we keep him as a backup. He's a good squad player. That's not a good squad player. I've mentioned this so many times. To me, that's the definition of the opposite of a good squad player, is somebody that we know isn't good enough for the first team, that's on first team wages. They're the guys that have to go for the club to progress. And like I say, just take your feelings and your own emotions out of it and look at it from a sensible, purely football and business decision. Not, don't let your heart rule your head, which I've been doing a lot of for years, and I think it's been helped by the fact that I don't have an affinity towards a lot of these players, that I can look at it that way. I felt that way about Santi, I felt that way about Jack, I feel that way about Rambo, I feel that way about Welbs. And there's so many more of this team that I feel that way about, that I couldn't give a flying toot if they leave, because I do believe them leaving in the short and long run will help this squad progress more as a whole, rather than individual players and love for individual players. And I just looked into Torreira versus Xhaka this year's stats, and it's not for good reading. People tell me Xhaka's this linchpin of the side and he's the anchor and he gets things moving. His stats aren't great, guys. And any of these XG tables and all that, he's nowhere near the top midfielders. He's there at this end of the scale, and he's down here somewhere. He's miles away from doing it. And people keep telling me he's going to progress, and he could progress. He's had enough time, guys. He's had, not the prime, but you would say your best years for improvement at the club, and he might have improved, but only marginally. And for me, he's plateaued. He's hit his ceiling of improvement. He's not going to get any better, and it's not even close to being good enough for what we need. In other systems and other teams it could work, but not for us in what we need and the way we're going to play football. We need an athletic, dynamic midfielder, and he is never going to be that guy. He's never going to improve to be it. He's at the right point now in at his age and where he is contractually, that he's got to go for me. I'll get onto this a bit further down, but he had better passing accuracy than Torreira, and especially when it came in the opponent's half. Now you could maybe offset that and say, well, he was trying more challenging passes, but I don't believe that for 1 minute. I just think he's not got the requisite quality we need to really influence play, building out from the back, and then being involved in it going forward. And then when we're getting countered again, him being involved in breaking that down, where our defence isn't just being run at by, completely overrun from midfield. And that's what happens to us a lot, is when an attack breaks down, we are all over the place. And that's been a problem for me for the best part of 10 years, is we're great when it's in our control. We're organised, we look, positionally organised, but as soon as it doesn't go our way, it's just, letting a load of, toads out of a box in a room. It's like ribbit, and they're going fucking everywhere. Headless chicken stuff. It's mind blowing. We can't keep any sort of quality in holding shape when we're under attack. So that's it. Looking at the sort of stat side of things. I've had a lot of you quizzing me and asking about transfer window. Now, for me, I don't think there's a lot to talk about at the moment, because a lot is going to rely on winning the Europa. That is going to change how much we have monumentally. I noticed already, people going into meltdown from Ornstein's comments. David's someone who blocked me a while ago because I questioned him, and he's like most of these journals, they can't take any sort of criticism at all, and they don't want to hear it. But I questioned a while back this guy's validity, and whether you should hang on his words, and I'm a firm believer you shouldn't. And since Arsene and Gazidis went, I don't think he really has any clout at the club anymore. And the comments that were made at the start of the season about all that shit would be stopping. So I take, I used to take what he says with a pinch of salt. I take it with a pint glass of it now. And rather than swallowing what he says, I'd rather rub it in my eyes. I don't buy what he says for 1 minute. I really don't. If you look at his comments, they're very, very different to what he was saying 6 months ago. And I feel he's just in with all the other journos now, where they're all just playing a guessing game. Well, we've got 40 million to spend, and we need 7 players, and he basically just went through, we need an entire team. That's not, I only really follow Mr. Arsenic, and mainly because he'll tweet the same bullshit that these guys are coming out with, but what he does that none of the rest do is actual investigative journalism, which is he will take quotes directly from players, directly from managers, directly from chairmen, directly from agents, where it's not just somebody's opinion, it's actual fact-based journalism, we're more on board with than this bullshit of just believing what some guy tells you because he used to have a pretty decent relationship at the club. If that's the case, we'll start going back to believing the plug, Dino and Moley and the rest of the fucking idiots that just play the guessing game, and so many of you buy into it through desperation, you'll believe anything. It's madness. Sorry guys, someone's battering me about work here. But that's how I was asked about the transfer window and reiterating my feelings again. So I've sort of, this where I've been saying, Unai needs 2 or 3 windows to do stuff. Some stuff he's going to have to do quickly in his first few windows. Last window was a good start, but how many of those it was a tricky situation then. How many of those players were you actually giving him credit for, or Sven and the backroom staff credit for? Because this is a big part of things where I think a lot of you, because you got so excited about Sven, wanted to give him credit for anything good that ever happened behind the scenes, and with personnel coming in the club, going out of the club. Whereas this time round, I don't think he'll have any real input into it. Even if he's left some sort of feelers behind for these guys, I'm not sure they're going to pay much attention to it. And I think it'll be more this year where it's Unai's choices, and this is the season we should be judging him a lot more on. Depending on how badly his hands are tied, it's going to be the same again. If he's only given, scraps to feed off, I'm not going to be on his case. I will be looking at other people to hand my shit onto. But he's going to bring in his sort of play. This is going to be his first real chance to bring in his players, and what he should be judged on is who comes in this window, because he'll be a big part of yay or nay in it, in my opinion. Whether he identifies them himself or he just says, this is the position I want, go and find me 10 guys that fit it, and then we'll whittle that down between us as a consensus. None of us really know, do we? But that's the way I hope it works. And I don't really want to support a club where the manager doesn't get to pick his own players. So we'll see, guys, but this is a massive window for him. So I was looking at separating what needs to happen, between what needs to happen, what might happen, what has to happen. So I had a sort of first tier of players which are gone, which is Cech, Ospina, Litchi, Rambo, Welbs. They're all going to be gone. I believe Ospina, Napoli are going to make that deal happen, and I don't think we're going to squabble too much over whether it's $500,000, $1 million, or 2 million, 3.5 million. I think it's just that deal's going to happen wherever we can hit a sort of happy medium. But all the rest are going to be gone. There's no two ways about that. But then if you just look at that 5 players, if you look at that 5, do we need to sign an instant replacement for any of those 5? And my instant reaction is no. So I look, Cech and Ospina gone, Martinez comes in. And like I've said the other day on mine, that's a huge saving on wages, massive saving, because he's on a fraction of what they're on, in between the two of them. Litchi going, I've said it before, I want to see Ainsley in the middle of the park. So I'd happily just bring Ossie Tutu in, because like I say, we're going to have to be clever in how we spend our money and what positions we identify. And although I would like us to bring in a replacement right back, someone who can be an understudy to Hector but put him under sufficient pressure, I don't think that's going to happen this window unless we get out quite a large number of players. So I'd happily let Ossie Tutu step in, and let's see if this kid's good enough. And if he's not, then we go and look to identify the problem. But he's one I would give a chance to at right back. Then I move on from those 3 and I look at Rambo. And I look at his output this year. It wasn't incredible. So I'm looking at Willock, Emile Smith-Rowe and Iwobi. If wingers come in, then Iwobi getting moved centrally. And I like him in that role. I've seen him play there on quite a few occasions, and he looks there's less pressure on him that position to have quality end product to his game, whereas down the wing he has to be a lot more prolific. Quality of crosses, assists and goal contribution has to be, whereas in the middle of the park he can sort of get away with the numbers he's getting away with now, and I think maybe he'd get more being in a more settled role that he can play well better in, but that's that one. But those sort of 3, and then I look at Welbs, and you guys know I'm not a massive fan of, I think he'd been a banter signing, and it's probably worse for me because I'm Manc, and I'm surrounded by a lot of City United fans, and a lot of United fans hammered me for the first 6 months he turned up, and I've just never got over the embarrassment, to be honest. Never thought there was any point in signing him, and I'd never thought there's any point in keeping him. He's just another one on first team wages that's never going to be good enough for the first team. That's just that one. But then you look at sort of Nelson, Saka, Amici. Are any of those 3 good enough to be a backup winger? Well, yeah, of course they are, in my personal opinion. And again, on a huge fraction of what Welbeck is on as a wage. So for me, that's already 5 players definitely going out that we can replace within the club already. So our expenditure and our budget doesn't matter too much towards that. Then I drop down to our next tier of players, which are players that for me have to just be got rid of, which is Jenko and El Nene. Just pointless players within the squad. and that's how I bracketed these two. Are just they're completely pointless. They bring nothing to the team whatsoever. Maybe there's 10 to 15 million there between those two, but they have to go for me. But then, then again, I look and I think, well, the Jenko, it's saying it ties in with Litchi. I would happily give Ossie to a knock at right back. And then I look at El Neni and I think Chambers coming back. He's an improvement instantly. Plus he can play right back. So maybe he could fill in there till Hector's fit. Centre back, he could fill in there and do a job when the needs be. And then he can, play in centre midfield. And he's the only other very good defensive-minded centre mid that we've got apart from Torreira. I could see Torreira improving because there's less pressure on him to perform week in, week out, and he can get a rest knowing that we've got an able deputy. So there's another 2 players. So that's 7 players out where we've not had to look outside the club yet for a replacement. Then we come down to 3 players for me that don't have to leave. It's a tricky way of wording it. They're not players that bring nothing to the squad, but for me personally, for the squad to really improve and for us to actually improve, these 3 have to go. So in my tier 3, it's Nacho, it's Mustafi and it's Xhaka, because they're a very important part of our side who are really bringing nothing to the table. So then I look at those 3 positions. We'd need a left back and a defensive minded left back. So if we play a back 4, this guy starts. My thoughts, a Turney or a Grimaldo. But then if we go to a 5, a 3 centre back and 2 wing backs, then we've got Kolasinac. And his numbers have been good this year. Whether you don't think he's great defensively, he's been great going forward. So that's that sorted for me at left back. Then I look at the centre back position with Mustafi, and I think, well, obviously a body has to come in. But I'm more than happy watching Bielik this year. And if it's a choice between him and Chambers, who plays in the middle of the park, who plays in the back line, I would much rather play Chambers in the middle of the park and drop Bielik into centre back. He's 6'4". He's not slow by any stretch of the imagination, and he's a big, robust player. He's an athletic 6'4". So I'd much rather see him drop in there as our sort of 5th, 6th choice centre back along with Mavropanos. And then, if anything happens in the centre of midfield, he can step in and, deputise for Chambers or deputise for Torreira. And then I just look at Xhaka, and he's the one where, so in these 3 positions, 2 we'd have to buy in, which is a dynamic box-to-box and a left-back. Like I say, Ainsley for me can be a dynamic box-to-box and someone who'll want to see get a goal there, but as a first-team starter, banging him in straight away next year, I'm not keen on that at all. And then I look at the next tier of players, our tier 4, which is players that, are they going, are they not going? Koscielny, Mesut, Mickey. I'm sure a lot of you would like for Mesut and Mickey to go. Whether they're going is a totally different thing. For me, financially, are they pulling their weight? Weighing up wages versus to output? Not at all. So they are 2 for me that would have to go. But there's much more pressing matters before those 2 for me, and all the other stuff can sort of pay for itself, where their wages don't really come into play. But that will have to happen again at some point if the numbers are down again next year now. With Mickey's situation with Raiola, that might be a case if we just can't get rid of him. I'm sure that weasel will find a way around it. He's the scumbag, that bloke. And I'm sure if he wants, or he's got players that want to move on, they'll find a way to accommodate that happening. But as it stands at the minute, I think we're probably stuck with Mickey, and I think maybe the same with Mesut. And Cos, I'm happy for Cos to get a year extension, but I'm not adverse to 2 centre backs coming in. And he just calls it a day. I just don't know, guys. But they're the 3 then positions that you'd look that we'd need. Another centre back, and then a fluid, a fluid central attacking midfielder / winger. Somebody who's a bit versatile up top. But that all boils down to, that entire list boils down to, so we'd need a left back, a centre back, a box to box mid, and a winger, which is what we've known from the start of the season anyway. So that's not changed. But they're the 4 positions that has to come with outside recruitment for me. And then I look at that list of players that would step up, which is Martinez, Ossie Tutu, Ainsley, who's sort of already stepped up this year, just not in the right position for me. Willock, Emile Smith-Rowe, who I'd like to see get a go, but I'm not adverse to him going out on loan again to Leipzig, because I think that could benefit us. And then Iwobi drops in the middle instead of him. Nelson, Saka, Amici. Nelson probably the most ready of those three, but I feel they could all do a job as impact subs and helping us in the long run of fixtures. Playing in cup games, and then Chambers and Bielik. So there's sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players there that internally we already have that can step up to benefit the squad, in my personal opinion. Then you get on to talk of what's been going on in this window, which people have been asking me about. Who do you think's coming in? Who do you think's going out? So like I say, from that list I've said, definitely gone Checo, Spina, Lichi, Rambo, Welbs. 2 more who I think will definitely go, Ajenko and El Nene. 2 more that I think are pretty likely to go are Mustafi and Xhaka. If the right money comes under the club's nose, I think we will get rid of them. I don't think there's any two ways about that. It's just if those right offers come in. And then, like I say, those other players that are sort of 50-50. But there's talk about Ober and Laka, and it's a real tricky one, because for me we should be building around those two. But I am not completely adverse to the idea of getting rid of one. But then it's how do you replace it? So just on the premise of that you could get 100 million for one of them, would the club be much better off accepting that offer and spending it on spreading it around on other positions to make us better as a team? Yes, I do agree with that sentiment. Is it that easy in real life? No, it's not. Because how big a chunk of that money have you got to spend on getting a replacement for Aubameyang? How easy is it to find someone that's scoring you 30 goals a year that you can guarantee will score you 30 goals a year, which he does, because his history and his past seasons tells you that. That's very hard to find, and I'm sure it wouldn't come, or unless you unearth somebody that's capable of it that we don't know yet, it's not going to happen for less than 50. So half of what you get back you're going to bin off trying to replace what you've just got rid of. So it's a real tricky one for me. So in theory it sounds like a great idea, in practicality not. So I think we're better off to just for the next 2 years build around what we do have that works already, which is 2 strikers that are creating 70 to 80 chances and scoring goals and assists a year, that if we all get what we want, which is more proficient wingers, will only go up, in my opinion. So that's that one. The other one was, somebody asked me about, was agent talk, based on Ozil, and his agent coming out saying, he bleeds red and he loves the club, he's not going anywhere and all the rest of it. And I instantly went, only thing this fucker bleeds is the club dry, which I do personally believe at the minute, because his output doesn't warrant his wages. That's just it, guys. You can go on about his global reach and all the rest of it. Well, let's just have him as an ambassador then, and retire him and just have him behind the scenes getting, a member of staff wages, because as a player, all of that aside, he's not doing it on the pitch, and he's living off name only at the moment. I don't buy into this he's lazy, because I don't think he's lazy. He grafts his arse off, but I just don't believe he fits our system anymore. Not the system we're playing, and this is again coming back to Xhaka, which is if Ozil, if we're to get the best out of him, we need two defensive-minded midfielders, one being a box-to-box sat deeper than him, and then wingers and people making runs for him. But this talk when his agent came out, and my instant reaction was, well, that's it, we're stuck with him. So now it's a way of, we can't have a guy on 350 grand a week not playing any games north of Watford and only turning up one home game a month. It's not going to cut it for me, and it doesn't cut it for a lot of you. So you've got to find a way that he's playing 2 out of 3 games, definitely. And they can't all just be at home either, because we don't only play important games at home, and we need important players in important games, whether at home, away, arse end of Europe, or 5 minutes round the corner. But I tried to look at it in a different way, which is, were those comments, and this is being really theoretical, guys, are those comments aimed to make him look like the good guy in the eventuality that he does get sold, whether he likes it or not? Or he agrees to it, because I see that as the only way he leaves is if he agrees, because there's no way we can force him out unless we pay out his contract, which would be tens of millions, and that's not a priority for us at the minute, really not. But looking at that, and is that a way of him keeping his fanboys on side, which is, if he left, do they all go, well, you've left now, you wanker, you can do one? Or if he left after these comments being made, people go, well, look, he didn't want to leave, did he? He loves the club, he loves London, meh. I thought it was another piss poor bit of PA from his entourage that proved to me he doesn't really care about the club. He squeezed us to death for that contract. Coming out with stuff like this, it doesn't say to me club man, doesn't scream club man to me at all. This is a time when you talk about non-personal things, or you just shut up. It's just not the time for it for me. It sort of just made me chuckle, as it's been the real low light of this season for me is this Mesut Ozil bickering every week, and the main thing before every game is his little fangirls going, he's got to play, and then he plays good, and then it's everyone going, well, he's shit. And it's just that infighting again. It's a big part of the infighting for me within the fan base again this year is him, and that is a big reason why I'd get rid of him, because he's too much of a Marmite character now. Where you've either got to be with him or against him. You can't sort of be indifferent anymore, because you're a fence sitter and you're an arsehole, and you're not a fanboy and you're not a detractor. So it's a real tricky one for me. But those comments, I wasn't a big fan of them at all. I don't like it. But maybe it was covering his own arse if he does get sort of pushed out, whether he likes it or not. And he's not fully behind it, but he agrees it's the best thing for him. And it's another one for me this year. He's looking back at it. Is how could a real self-respecting world-class player who rates themselves as the best in their position or at what they do play as little as he has? Whether that's you get into the manager's, you get into his neck and you're at him and on his back every week, or you just draw a line and say, well, I'm not going to get it under this guy, so I'm going to go elsewhere. Maybe this fucker thinks he can hang out long enough, like say he's under no pressure to leave, so maybe he thinks he can outlast Emery, and then another manager comes in that will accommodate him. I don't know. It's a real trick, like I said, I keep saying it's a real tricky one for me, but I'm sort of losing respect for him, because I don't feel he's got a lot for himself at the minute. I think he's quite happy with how much he's getting played. Then he can sort of turn up at home against the lesser sides and look like a bit of a hero, so his fanboys still love him. And then he's got all the time in the world to invest his time on Fortnite, which obviously, through seeing how many hours he's put into it, he obviously spends a lot of time on it. And I know it's a laughable thing to have a pop about, but somebody who I work for, if they found out that I'm contracted to do 40 hours, but 32 of them I spent playing with my dick, I'd get the chop, I'd be gone. So it's not good for me, guys. It's maybe being a bit petty and pedantic looking at it, but it's not good. So that's sort of the outs. I don't really see any big talking point players leaving. I really don't, that would really rock us all and we go, whoa, I did not, that's a real sideswipe, didn't see that coming. But players sort of leaving. Mustafi, the noises that I've been hearing for a while is he's one that we would definitely be looking to get rid of, because he's actually one that we might get some alright money for. And Xhaka now, the rumblings are there, and I don't want to say I'm delighted to think about somebody leaving, but I said it again last night. If we managed to get rid of those two and got 50 million quid, that would be single-handedly the best piece of business this club has done in 10 years. And that is including getting Laka in, getting Ober in, knowing what they've done since they came here. Because these are two positions that are the absolute spine of our team. And I think we could go out and get other strikers maybe and other things, but not relying around these two guys anymore being influential parts of our squad, I think the team would be so much better for it. And honestly, I think I might have to get a tattoo of Unai's face on my arse or on the end of my knob or something, or maybe him and Raul on a ball bag each, I don't know, but him and his right hand man. I don't know, but it'd be huge for me. I've been crying out for this for a couple of seasons now, which is these are two really important positions in our side, and the two that, yes, these guys are decent. I'm not saying they're terrible players, but if we really want to progress and keep up with the better sides, they are two that have to go. They just are for me, and that's how it is. A lot of you say I'm a hater, and it's got nothing to do with hate. I just love the club, and this is the only way I see the club progressing, is giving these important roles to players that are actually capable of playing our system and the way we're going to go about things. And neither of these two can be trusted, in my opinion, when it comes out of the big moments. And they're both capable of putting in 7 out of 10s, but would you trust them in a do or die situation? And if you say yes, then you're a fucking mentalist, in my opinion. because it's like trusting a baby with an AK-47. You just wouldn't do it, or telling your kids to, oh yeah, of course you can play with that meat cleaver, just run down the house with it, there you go, and your kids are running about like that. It's just fucking madness. Make sure your shoelaces are untied as well. That's the situation for me with these two, and why they've got to go. I want players that come up clutching big moments, not that you go, for fuck's sake, he's done it again, they're fucking, and you're throwing shit at and the slippers come off, and you're punting the dog down the end of the garden. That's what happens for me, and that's why these two have got to go. So for me, that'd be huge business. Inter Milan coming in for Xhaka, I think there is legs in that, I really do, because I think he'd fit in well in Italy, where it's not a pacey game, where you can have that sort of deep lying midfielder that can just spray it about under no real pressure, because he is alright at that, but that doesn't cut it in the Premier League, and not in the game we're playing. We're going to play a high intensity gegenpress type of game where you're going to have to be as a unit fucking all over the show, and this guy just doesn't have it in the locker. I'm sorry guys, he doesn't. And I could see him going there, and I could see them paying us decent money. I'd accept anything north of 20 million, that being the base number. He's not worthless, and I wouldn't get rid of him at any cost. Excuse me, guys, but if we could get 20 million for him, I'd be hands shaking and off you go, fella, and already looking into reinvesting. The Mustafi one, I think there's big legs in that. But I don't like the idea of pushing around this loan deal. We're not in a position to be loaning players out and then in a year's time hoping, because we know how good this guy is. So is that a clever move? Because then we might just end up with him again, and then it's another player coming back that we can't get rid of, and then we've got a player that we've brought in to replace him, and then we're just adding more to the wage bill again. It's not going to work for me like that, unless it's a guaranteed, not based on appearances. It's you've got him on loan for a year, but then at the end of that year you pay us 30 million euros for him. I'm all good with that, because we can use that to offset deals now, knowing that money had come in. But to do it on a as a hopefully at the end of the term of his loan you could maybe buy him firm, we set not having that, because we need 20 million now more than we'd need it in a year's time. So for me, I'd be delighted if these two leave. Honestly, I would be dancing up and down, and like I say, I will get those tattoos because I'd be delighted with it. As for incomings at the moment, I don't see anything that's going to excite you happen in the next couple of weeks, because like I say, our budget is going to massively rely on Champions League. That's just the nuts and bolts of it. You look at like the Championship games last night, that's like worth 170 million to a team coming up. You look at the difference between Europa League and Champions League and all the other bit, you're talking a difference of 100 million quid all day long. Factoring in all the sort of sponsorship shit that comes with the Champions League being a much more enticing advertising conveyance rather than the Europa League. So that's going to rely massively. So I think we might see some business coming in over the next couple of weeks, but I don't see anything where you're going to go, yes, we've signed him. I think it's going to be more someone who won't rely on us landing Champions League. The finances of it won't rely on us landing Champions League. Smaller deal. So like the Martinelli deal, that could definitely happen in the next couple of weeks. Because it's not, he won't be demanding Champions League football. He won't be saying, well, I'm only coming if you've got Champions League football. And we're talking about 6 million euros, 6 million quid. So that's not going to rock our budget too much either. So I could see that happening. Then we roll into the centre back. That's the one where there seems to be a lot of noises at the minute. Dejene, Kahneman, Umtiti are the three. I think the one player that we can all agree on that we all want is Canate. I think that's the one universal player that we can all get momentum behind, and everyone would be on board with it. He's the only one that I've not really seen anybody going and turning the noses up at it, whereas all the others is a sort of a yay and a nay for. So Dejene, I don't mind him. I've seen him play quite a few times, and I don't think he's terrible, but he's a player, if he came in, I would want to see one more. I'd see him as more of a replacement for Koscielny than I would for Mustafi. So if he came in, I'd want to see Koscielny go. Then I would want to see Mustafi sold and somebody younger come in. His age, his price, it's all probably quite fair, to be honest. He wouldn't be my ideal choice. Would I be upset if he came in? Not entirely. But like I say, I'd want that deal to mean certain other things happen. Kahneman, there was talk that we bid for him. That's come out that we haven't bid for him. you're looking at a player of his age. It's not for great reading, guys. I'd rather see what somebody's capable of, rather than just writing off based on their history. But he's at Gremio at his age, which says, has he ever had a chance to move to a proper league? Not discrediting that league, but a big European league. Has he had the chance? Should he have had the chance? Has he turned it down? Is he comfortable where he is? And you look, he's only played 166 games in his career or whatever at 28 or whatever he is. That's appalling. And I don't want to go down this route of players that we're not going to be guaranteed sort of 30 games, 20, 30, 40 games a year out of. I don't want to start going down that. And his disciplinary record's not great either. I know the Brazilian league's a rough, robust one, and it's not. But I hate to say it, I've been in the YouTube, and having a look, and he looks like another bit of a nutcase for me, not someone you can particularly trust. And that's, we've just got rid of Gabriel, who's like that. Mustafi, I want to see rid of, who's like that. Just loses the plot. I don't want to see another player come in like that. So for me, I'd be very underwhelmed if he came in. But for me, it's another one where if he came in to replace Koscielny, and then we brought in another centre back like a Canate, I'd be all right with it. So he's sort of weighing up your wants and needs in it. And then we look at Umtiti, who I know we've got very big interest in. I know that for a fact, coming through a couple of contacts I have. But he's another one. If he is available around the €40 million mark, only adding sort of 10 million euros, 20 million euros to what these guys are going for, that's a no-brainer in terms of quality. Because this guy is a world-class centre-back. It's just all this, he argued of not having the knee operation, and then it cost him, and his injury record isn't great recently. But we should have the staff in place that could say, well, yes, like we've looked at it with Jack and Santi and gone, right, we can't rely on these guys, so they've got to go. Makes no viable sense. So I don't believe we would bring him in knowing that he might only give us 10 games a year. I think there'd be a very comprehensive process that we would go through to realise whether this guy could come up. Because for me, if we get a player like that, I want to see him start pretty much every game he's physically capable of. And then we slot a Holding next to him or Socrates next to him, as a first choice double act. But he was one I would, if it all comes up, all comes up good on the medical side of things, he's one I'd definitely press the button on. For sort of 30 million quid, that'd be crazy business. And he already has the links with Lacquer, great mates, possibly some of the other French lads or club connections that he's got with lads at the club. So I'd be more than happy with that one. And it's one I'd, a dream of Canate. Realistically, a Hermoso or an Umtiti is what I would be happy with and content with. Taking away the dream scenario, and then Dejeuner and Kahneman I'd sort of be indifferent about it. It's a position we need. We'd be filling that need, but is it going to take us forward over the next 5 years and really help the squad? Not particularly. Then you look at sort of wingers. I did a little poll for you guys the other day talking about Zaha, and I said, what would you rather do? Pay 70 million for Zaha or Pep, or spend that 70 million on getting Canate, Rabiot, Ziyech and Brandt, and still 10% of you said you would pay, use all of our budget to go and get Pep or Zaha, and it blows my mind. So many of you moan about the state we're in financially, and we can't do this and we can't do that, and I'm fucking sick of it, and Stan can die, he's a twat, he's not spending any money. But if some of you had the reins of the club, we'd be in liquidation within months, and like I say, because so many of you think about things with your heart rather than your head. You're just getting, well, I want a winger, and I want a winger at any cost, so yeah, sacrifice the entire fucking club to do it. And that's not how to do business, guys, and it's not how the club will move forward at all. If anything, you would just sort of pacify the problems for a sort of year, and then it'd just be, we'd be bombing out. It's mindless. He's putting a transfer request Zaha. Good for him if he believes he should be playing a level above, and he possibly should be. I don't think he's world class. I don't think he's really top class. And I don't think he ever will be, to be honest. I think he might improve in a better side, but it's all personality stuff for me that I know from behind the scenes that is why I wouldn't want him anywhere near the club. And that's my own personal thing with him. Is why I wouldn't want him anywhere near, and certainly not for Palace want 100 million. I'm sure that's bullshit, because that's just. That's just nonsense, isn't it? It's just that puts him, that's more than what Barca are probably going to pay for Griezmann. No, not happening. For me, he's a 40, 50 million pound player, and at that money I'd be interested, but not for 70 plus. No, not in a million years. And Brandt, he's one that I've mentioned, that could play sort of the Ramsey role and then play out wide, or even up front. If we're playing two up top, then he'd be able to play that role as well. The noises coming from him aren't great. He'd like to go to Dortmund, but if they got no Champions League, or he doesn't get Champions League where he is, he's happy to. He's sort of happy to stay where he is. I think he's one that we're going to have to just forget about, because I think he doesn't want to leave Germany, is how it looks to me from all the noises. Then I'm back to my Ziyech agenda, for 25 million euros. I think that's a fabulous deal, and one we should definitely be looking at. And he's a left-footed player, which is something we don't have many of. Not that it's a massive thing, but it's something you've got to have a mixture. So that's it for me, guys, on all the stats, the season gone, what's happened, transfers at the moment. I might do a few more of these, maybe a weekly wrap-up of just, reading what's in the news, save you guys doing it, and then I'll just blast out, a quick 10-minute one of these. That's it, guys. End of the week. I'm going to go and lie down and die in the fetal position for a few more days, because I'm really not well. Chest is rattling like a bastard. Have a lovely weekend, guys. I hope the sun comes back out, because it's disappeared today, which is depressing. Typical, though, that it gets to weekend, everyone bursts out the office on Friday and goes, yes, the sun been's out all week. Oh, no, it's back to shit. And the barbecue's getting wheeled back in the shed for another few weeks. But good luck if you're out and about. Have fun. Enjoy. Si signing out.